Today we're joined by Sheriff Mike Chitwood, the elected sheriff of Volusia County since 2017. With over 30 years in law enforcement, including leadership in both Philadelphia and Daytona Beach, Sheriff Chitwood is known for his transparency, energy, and dedication to community safety. He's earned national recognition, countless commendations, and the trust of this community. Today we'll talk about public safety, protecting seniors, and how to stay one step ahead of fraud and scams. Sheriff, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Pleasure. So let's talk about public safety, maybe beyond scams, and focus in maybe on some of the challenges that seniors face in Volusia County.
Well, I think the number one thing is knowing your surroundings, and we talked about this before. You still have to target harden yourself. You know, car breaks, it's a big thing. And what happens when they break into your car? Your firearm or your personal identity gets stolen. And one of the things to keep in mind, some people just break into a car for one thing and one thing alone, and that's your car registration. Why they want that is they can go to the car dealer and get the key fob made. So auto theft is a whole new way of doing things. You just can't break in and punch the steering column anymore like they did in the old days. Now they'll go in, ransack your car, take your registration out, go to the dealer, get a key fob, and just come right back in and drive away. They have a key, they'll retitle the car. So that's something you really need to look out for. And the other thing is when during a natural disaster, okay, a tree goes down, your power goes out, you get a flood, and somebody comes to your door soliciting, hey, I could take that tree down, or you had a flood, I could do, remediation there. You got to call 911 immediately because that's a scam. It's not allowed in the state of Florida. You cannot go door to door soliciting your services.
Wow.
So you got to keep that in mind. And we see that. It's a distraction theft. They get you out of the house. Man, look how close your tree is to that power line in your roof. We really need to cut it back. And in the meantime, somebody now is in the back door of your home, ransacking and going through everything. And by the time you get back in, your jewelry, your credit cards have been missing. And now you have made yourself a victim out of those two simple things to protect yourself.
And the first thing I think of, we used to mention the hurricanes and storm damage is, I'm thinking, well, I know it's coming, hurricane prices, that's what we call it, right?
Right.
But it's much more than that. It is a huge distraction, and they're not allowed to show up at your door like that.
Just can't show up at your door. You have to call, I want somebody to look at my trees. If they show up on your doorstep, they're there for a tree or your roof or something like that, you need to call us right away.
Really? How about just stopping by and wanting to give you a solicitation?
They shouldn't solicit at all. But if you got to call us and let us know. Because
normally, notes in the door?
Normally what we find, and in particular with home inspectors over the years, and I don't want to paint everybody with a broad brush here, but we've had home inspectors who are out and out con men and thieves. You're going to sell your home, they're going to come in and do a home inspection, and next thing you know, you can't find your jewelry, you couldn't find your credit card, you had money put away or a firearm hidden somewhere.
Yeah.
And the last one we arrested, he had been arrested several times throughout the state of Florida and just kept changing the company's name. And when we caught him the last time, he had stuff from like 10 other properties he had inspected. It was all in the trunk of the car. So you got to be careful for our seniors. Who do you let into your home? And I think a lot of that generation is very, very trusting.
Yeah, they are. And I'm going to answer that question. Nobody.
Right.
Don't let anybody in.
That's what it should be.
In fact, again, seniors very often, statistically, this is not a stereotype, but statistically, seniors have a lot more time on their hands if they're retired. Look, if you're working, you're a moving target. You're harder to hit.
Right.
But when you're a senior or you're retired, you have more time on your hands. You're more likely to take the phone call. You're more likely to engage somebody who knocks on your door because, you're tired of watching TV or whatever the case may be. And so we really have to keep our guard up. The short answer is don't open the door to anybody you're not expecting. Anybody that's got something that's important to communicate with you, they can mail it to you, whatever, okay? You're under no obligation. And that's also true of the generation of seniors. Very often, the current generation there's a big emphasis on courtesy and polite. And so, but by being courteous and polite, you may be opening yourself up to real risk.
Yeah, they grew up differently than we did. And that's a good thing. They didn't have all this technology and they didn't have all the...
Lucky them.
Lucky them is right. Life was easy when they had a rotary phone on it.
Right.
But that is the big thing, is that exactly.
Well, so with Volusia County specifically, we have a lot of events, festivals, parades. What would you caution or provide some guidance to not just seniors, anybody who is going to participate in that? And you're in a crowd, there are a lot of people around. What should somebody do to just take some common sense precautions?
It takes 2 seconds if you're going to a movie theater or a restaurant. God forbid, if something happened, where would I go to get out? So you got to do when you sit down and look around. Okay, there's an exit door here, an exit door there. God forbid if something happens. You'll never use it, but you know what? It's nice to know that. When you're out at a parade, keep something in mind. Just say to yourself, play that devil's advocate. Boy, could a truck get through here? Because we've seen it before.
Oh, yeah.
If somebody were to start shooting, where would I go? What would I do? Always have a plan in place in case, God forbid, something. It takes 2 seconds to scope it out. What's the easiest way to get out? And what would I do if I had a shelter in place? And then go from there. I think the fear that I have is, having just spent time in Ukraine, is watching how drones are now being used for terrorism. It's a matter of time before that same cheap technology is deployed here. You can go to Costco for $250, buy a drone. For another $50, go to Walmart and turn that drone into a bomb that could blow up a school bus. It's not going to knock down buildings, but it could certainly cause all kind of damage. That's my concern going forward.
Blow up a restaurant.
It could anything. High school
thanks.
football game.
Yeah, thanks for that. Here I am thinking we're getting a handle on some of these scams. I was going to say, what do you do when you're looking for an exit out of the restaurant? I can't sit with my back to the door. I have to be able to see the door because I want to know what's coming in, right?
Right.
Maybe I missed my calling.
Maybe, because we're supposed to sit that same way.
How about some of the concerns for people that are living alone? What are some of the specific things, or maybe more of an isolated area geographically? What would you say to them?
You need to somehow establish some type of a network. Seniors Against Crime is a great network in Volusia County. It'll provide you with updates, what different patterns are happening here. Meals on Wheels. I volunteer for them 2 or 3 times a year, and you hit the nail on the head. So many of those folks that we deliver to, the only outside contact that they have is that Meals on Wheels driver.
Really?
Twice a week.
Wow.
That's it. There's no family. There's no nothing. And again, it goes back to the neighbors. As busy as we are, take the time to know who's in your neighborhood. You don't have to sit there and hold a conversation for 20 minutes, but hey, if you ever need anything, and use technology to your benefit for our seniors that are alone, Life Alert, all of those things, they're things you need to do. And
have with maybe friends or family that are out of the area or not living close by, have a routine check-in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Any of those, all of those things can help. How about families that have a senior that they're know they need to maybe help a little bit more, or maybe some caregiving? How can we have the senior feel more comfortable? So speaking from the family standpoint or the caregiving, what can we do to make them feel more comfortable about maybe offering some assistance without them feeling like they're losing their independence?
I think that's where you rely on the professionals, Council on Aging, Stuart Markman, because what we do have, and we've had one not that long ago, was the family knew that the person was in early stages of dementia, and they said, we have plenty of time on our side. And then that person went out and got involved in a car accident and killed a mother and a baby crossing the street, crossing Williamson Boulevard. And you say to yourself, the family knew, why didn't you come down and do something? Or we'll get the call, I haven't heard from my dad in 2 days or 3 days, it's not like him. And then you get all the information on the car, and you use technology, and you discover the poor guy has been on I-4 making loops between Lakeland and us, and pulling over on the side of the road and sleeping because the family neglected, to say, because they were living in Chicago or LA. You have to, I know it's a pain in the neck, but you can't allow your parent to go down that road. And then use all of the resources that we have to guide that person into where they need to be.
Yeah, you either care or you don't, and most people care, right? So you're going to have some uncomfortable conversations. You're going to have some conversations and talk with your family and parents or whoever it may be.
Hey, my grandfather was 98 when he took his car keys, and he was not a happy camper. And let the truth be told, they probably should have took his keys when he turned 90.
Right.
Because while he was sharp as a tack, he just couldn't function. He didn't have the reflex action.
Right.
So backing up was an adventure. He would strike the pole, or he would roll into the back of somebody's car, or he would park on the curb and give himself a flat. But finally, my mother and her sister said, "Okay, enough's enough. When he goes to bed tonight, we'll take his car keys and tow the car." But I don't think till the day he died, he spoke to my aunt. But that's the risk you run.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. All right, Sheriff Chitwood, great information. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.